What is going on, everybody? TheRealSherifM here, aka ManganasSteel. Almost forgot my name. With another episode of the Knife Maker Spotlight. And in this series, or these couple of videos, we are focusing on Peter Carey. Before I continue, please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Really helps with the algorithm. I'm trying to grow the channel up to 500 followers. So really, I would appreciate it if you guys click that subscribe button. Now, let's get into the second knife of the Peter Carey series, and unfortunately my only other one. Fingers crossed he is bringing another one into production with WE knives, which I am very excited for. I will be picking that up, but for this video we are going to focus on this guy, the Turbo. So both of the knives that you've seen, this guy and this guy, were done in collaboration with Monterey Bay Knives, which I am ever so thankful that they worked with Peter Carey to do a production series with. And these guys are stunning. This particular one, I don't know how nice this is going to come through in the video, but this is a maroon micarta. You have this beautiful back spacer here done in titanium pocket clip. And if you remember my last video where I talked about the sound of the Peter Carey knives, well, it's here again. It is such a distinctive sound. Listen to this. And here they're using steel liners, but again, the same sort of short lock bar that we saw with the VLD. And that makes for a truly unique sound and really snappy flipper action, which I am absolutely in love with. For this model, we have more of a drop point / sort of like saber blade, very tactical inspired. Again, with the VLD, we have this nice swedge here that allows this thicker blade stock to get nice and thin at the tip. And we have a repeat of the amazing Carey ergos. I mean, really, the handle shape between the VLD and the Turbo are not that dissimilar. They are different. They definitely are. One area where they are much different is actually in the overall thickness, as you can see. I don't have my calipers readily available, but the Turbo was definitely designed more as a pocket EDC friendly sort of knife, which, you know, is a nice contrast to the VLD. VLD is definitely something that you're going to wear with heavier jeans or something like that to really accommodate this thick boy. But the Turbo is meant to be just very EDC friendly and very pocketable. But man, what a knife. This particular one is done in SanMai ZV-E10, and you can see right there the line of the SanMai sandwich right across the edge, which is really nice. That makes this edge very hard, incredibly hard actually. ZDP is a very high hardness steel, and this thing keeps and maintains a screaming sharp edge like you wouldn't believe. Now this is in contrast to my dressier VLD, or not VLD, but Turbo here, that was done in M390. And you can see it's This is my, again, just like with the VLD, this is more of my safe queen of the two. Got the all black blade with the raindrop or Damascus carbon fiber, which just is stunning. All black hardware, black backspacer, black pocket clip. I mean, this thing is just, and I'm really torn to say which is the more premium of the two. I mean, you got the micarta, all the titanium details with the ZDP, or you have the carbon fiber, raindrop carbon fiber with the M390. I mean, definitely the ZDP would be my go-to steel. If they did this version in ZDP, I would be over the moon, to be honest, even if it wasn't a all black blade, because man, that ZDP is just, whoo, it's nice. And it's nice to see a manufacturer like Monterey Bay Knives venture out of the norm and offer something like that. I mean, it just makes for a really, really wonderful EDC knife. And some of the things that are really interesting about this is you can see how the primary bevel here is a little bit shorter and it gets a little taller. If you follow the line here of this grind, that really does mean that your blade right through here is a bit thinner than it is back here. It's a little bit thicker, and that does... I have mixed feelings about stuff like that. I've done it myself, and I'm still trying to decide where I land. You know, some people say that having a thinner blade back here helps with, you know, push cutting through materials. Some people prefer a thicker blade right through there. And I'm not 100% certain where I stand, like wholeheartedly. Personally, like, I really love, for example, hollow grinds, like you see here on this Ray Laconico Easy E, if the camera would focus. There we go. And this is just a do-it-all sort of, you know, hollow grind, and then you have a nice reinforced thicker tip. Contrast that now with, say, something like this guy, which is a knife designed by Gustavo Cecchini, which I'm going to do a whole series on. And you can very clearly see, like, this is a much thicker back section here versus a much thinner tip section. And honestly, both of them are really, really nice to use. I just haven't decided what my favorite is in terms of, like, hardened, steadfast sort of knife rules. Regardless, this is a delightful knife to EDC. Again, talking about the ergos, you've got just really, really nice, beautiful ergos. You have a nice pseudo like thumb ramp here in the tactical style. And this knife is really comfortable in a saber grip. You have a very like clear thumb landing. I still maintain that the jimping is much more of like an aesthetic choice than a truly functional jimping. But in a saber grip, this knife is very, very comfortable for piercing, cutting through bags, cutting through anything you need to open. With its thinner profile over the VLD, it's even nicer to pinch grip here like this and really work the curvature of the blade, whereas with the VLD, the blade is more of this flatter profile all the way through. So when you're pinch gripping, you're really more trying to get towards the tip than anything else. So with this guy, with the curvature and of the blade, you can kind of pinch grip it and work that curvature a little bit more, which is really nice. Reverse grip, incredibly comfortable, easy to use. And what's really interesting is, you know, despite this knife being a thinner knife, it doesn't walk like sideways in your grip when you're using it for harder tasks. Which is always a concern that I have when you take a profile such as this that's kind of intended to be a little bit thicker and then you suddenly make it thinner. This is one of the great balances of knife design, is thickness versus height. And this is a really well executed version of that, where it did make the knife a bit thinner for kind of everyday usability, but the height is still good, that you really do still maintain and feel completely in control of the knife, regardless of what grip you're using. And I chalk that up to the brilliance of Peter Carey, if I'm 100% honest. Now, this guy definitely is in my everyday rotation, which you may be able to see from the aging of the maroon micarta scales. I definitely carry and use this guy quite a bit. We have a bit of chamfering here, just like the VLD, and up here as well, you can see in the material contrast where that chamfering has gone, which definitely makes this a very comfortable knife to handle and carry. Gives almost that sort of feeling of like a rounded scale, you know. Now, this guy is just a stunner. Has all the same features of the other guy. Has a slightly different sound, which I actually chalk up to all of the DLC coating that's on this knife. And it's more of a deeper sound. It's less of a chink kind of sound. You hear that? There's almost like 2 clicks to this knife, whereas this is just more of a solid, just Now, there is a slight variance between these two. The detent is a little bit lighter in this guy versus that, which is pretty typical for mass manufacturing. But I wanted to spend a moment and just appreciate how nice this is. And I don't know if it can come through in the video, but there's a slight waviness to the top surface here, and that may be how they get this sort of Damascus sort of pattern out of the carbon fiber. I'm not entirely sure, but it's actually really nice in the grip. It just feels a little bit more secure than a comparable just smooth carbon fiber usually does. And it just makes for a stunningly beautiful knife. Hence why this guy is a bit more of a safe queen than the other one. But truly, this is what I consider, and it's a lot of where I like to end up in the knife design sort of ethos, is practical tactical. You know, this is something you can definitely use in a defensive role, but that's not its intention. It is an EDC knife. It follows a lot of the requisite parameters for an EDC knife, being a little bit thinner in the blade stock, nice geometry for cutting through things. But this is a knife that, you know, worst case scenario, God forbid anything happens, you do have something that you can defend yourself with. And this may be one of the greatest inspirations, Peter Carey in particular, for the RUCKUS. You know, the RUCKUS definitely was not seeking to copy either of these. but it has its own unique character aside. And yeah, the whole idea of a practical tactical knife was largely inspired by Bob Trezzola and my guy here, Peter Carey. So you can see some core similarities, you know, in just the thinking between these. Actually, here, let's do black on black next to black on black. There we go. So you can see they're clearly different knives, you know, very different knives, but a bit of the thinking that went into the RUCKUS can be seen here. Is just a different take on a similar concept of practical, tactical EDC knives, you know. Liners, a little bit thinner construction. We went a bit thinner on the blade thickness with the RUCKUS in order to make it a little bit more EDC friendly. But I even thought about the sound and the function of the locking mechanism the way Carey does. Now, one thing that I will critique a little bit for Carey and Monterey Bay knives is they do have this beautiful relief here for getting into the thumb, you know, section of the liner. However, with the flipper tab and the placement of the ball for the detent, right, you get what's called a bit of double clutching. You're not always hitting that point, and especially if you're like up more towards the front of it, you can get into this area where you're not quite at the ball. You see what I mean? You still have to do a bit of travel. And I don't remember, because it's been a little while since I took these apart, if there's a detent ball ramp, but it definitely could benefit from having the ball be, I don't know, maybe in a point for earlier engagement. Let me see if I can show you guys where it's at. I think it's a little bit further back, and I personally would maybe pull it a little further down, so that when you engage, like if I'm here, like as you can see, I'm not engaging the ball. So you can get this double clutching, as it's called. Whereas generally when I open these guys, I tend to put my thumb quite a bit further back. So now I'm on the ball, so to speak. So anyways, I hope you guys like this little look at the Peter Carey Turbo, man. I mean, this is, again, along with the VLD, one of my all-time favorite knives. I think it's absolutely wonderful. Love Monterey Bay knives. I've always been a big fan of Sanford and what he's doing, man. But for them to bring Peter Carey knives to the masses just put me over the moon. So I hope you enjoyed this look. I hope you appreciated, maybe have a new appreciation for Peter Carey. He is a genius knife designer and has been doing things right for quite a while, honestly. So check him out, and please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. I will catch you guys in the next one.